Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Camera Tuesday. In today's episode, we're gonna talk about which Sony camera to buy. In my last episode, I discussed there are three types of camera and why professionals should always buy a full frame system. So today we're gonna narrow down that search in hybrid department. So question becomes, why Sony? The answer is very simple because Sony jumped into full frame mirrorless very early on, as early as 8 years ago. They have a very seriously mature full frame system, and I mean a system in every Tom, Dick and Harry way. So it's very mature. On top of that, let's say you are starting out and you are like, okay, I do not have $1 million sitting in a bank. So the price to performance ratio of Sony cameras are unmatched. Flat out, it's unmatched. The amount of things they can do, the amount of things they can do reliably, and the amount of things they can do reliably well, it's on a different level. Basically, to give you a comparison, you may be like, hey, Sony and Canon autofocus are more or less the same, and you want to buy Canon, but here's the Canon does not make mirrorless professional bodies, which has dual card slot. So you will buy Canon R or RP. RP is a good choice simply because of the lower cost, but R is not that good. On top of that, if you do 4K recording, it will crop the hell out of it. It will basically make it smaller than Micro Four Third. So you get the idea. Like, for what Sony offers, they are offering it an unmatched price. So very good price to performance ratio. That means you will spend a very little money, but you will gain a substantially serious amount of thing. On top of that, they not only have one professional body, they have choice, and each three of them, like the three professional bodies that they are offering right now as of making of this video, all three of them are very fine-tuned tools. Basically, one is a normal drill, another is an impact hammer driver, something else is a jackhammer. So you have different tool that suits you. So that is very good. So like if you're like, hey, I want this, but this camera is, instead of making a jack of all trade, they made like, okay, you want this, you got this, you want this, you got that. So three choices in body alone. On top of that, I remember the early videos of YouTubers when they were talking about Sony cameras, and they were like making a joke. It's like, people will buy Sony body and they will buy Canon lenses, because at that time Sony was making very good body very early on, but their lens selection was lacking, to say the least. However, that has improved drastically. At this point in time, they're solidly like, yeah, if you want a lens, there is a 99% chance we have it natively available. So that is why Sony. Now, okay, let's start with the body. Which body? Well, if you are low on money, or like you have a big amount of money, but you want to make sure you spend that money on lenses rather than just buy one good lens and one great body, your starting point should be A7 Mark IV. And if you are not in a hurry, I would urge you to wait for 6 to 7 months, because Mark IV will come out. So again, that will have a bit more polished body. Do not expect Mark IV to be like, whoa, but it will be much more polished experience. Basically, the chassis will be made same as A7R Mark IV and A9 Mark II. Basically, chassis will be improved a lot, but don't expect dramatic performance. It will be like more polished experience. So if you can wait, I would urge you to wait. So it will have like minor improvements, like basically quicker startups, more refined autofocus, and basically dual UHS 2 slots. So that would be a very important thing. If you can afford to wait, I would urge you to wait for that. Like, that is a very good low budget starting point, which changed the industry. The reason for that is because it's sold like hotcakes. Basically, full frame rarely sells. Like, if you go Amazon top 20 cameras, per year by year, there is rarely anything that touches full frame. It's going to be like Canon 600D, 500D, something like that, then Nikon D3500 or something like that. And then there was Sony. Sony was in the third position, but Sony was a full frame system. Full frame at the third position in basically Amazon. That's wow. So it changed the world. Then we come to let's say you have more money. Like A7 Mark III is like good starting point, jack of all trade, but like you have the money, you can spend it. So on what you want to spend? Let's say you want to do modeling or wedding or things of that nature. The high resolution beast, basically A7R, R stands for resolution, R Mark IV is a good choice for you. Now you might be like, shouldn't I buy Mark III because it's cheaper? Again, you can buy that, but I would urge you not to do so, simply because Mark IV is a much more polished experience. Not better, polished. It's like the hand grip is much more improved, so you can actually hold it. Basically your thumb joysticks are much more improved. It's just those improvement will make your life much more easier. Like, it won't be like, whoa, drastically, 40 megapixel to 60 megapixel is like, whoa. It's just more polished, so you will enjoy it more. So for that reason, A7 Mark IV. That is a very suited camera for weddings, because if you have a, let's say, bride or groom, and they are very well dressed, and they have a lot of intricate details put onto their jewelry, clothes, or things of that nature, this camera will really show it to you. It's like, I got this. So it's very well suited for that. Then we come to like let's say you do wildlife photography or sports photography, then you need something with a bit more oomph, the speed. So basically you need to buy A9. Now many times people confuse this, so like why the heck A7 Mark III is 24 megapixel and A9 is also 24 megapixel and it's so expensive, it's almost like double the price. Why the heck it is simply because the sensor on this is a different beast. They have what we classify as stock basically stacked CMOS sensor. Think of it that way. You have a sensor, you have something that reads it and that feeds the data to the processor. That has three of them on the sensor itself. That is why this camera is so fast, because it can do like basically it's doing three parallel readouts all the time. So it can do drastically faster autofocus acquisition, almost a negligible rolling shutter and all that thing. So that is why like it's a completely different technology. All these three are different things. One is made for high speed. Everything about this is built for high speed, and specifically A9 Mark II has much higher hit rate. Basically Mark 1 is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Heck, it will destroy almost any DSLR in terms of autofocus performance, but in terms of autofocus reliability, basically let's say you did a burst for 1 second or 2 seconds, how many shots are absolutely awesomely on focus? A9 Mark II has much higher rate. Basically it's like it took the good and made it best. So, and not again the same chassis improvement happened, because Sony does this one awkward thing or unique thing, depending on how you see it. They have the same chassis in every body. Basically all these three will have the same chassis design. These two have Mark II chassis. So meaning what does that mean? Let's say for some reason, let's say you have a lot of lens collection, you have A7R for your wedding jobs and all that, but you want to go out and wilder life and do wildlife photography. You can buy A9. Battery grip that is made for basically A7R Mark IV will work with A9 Mark II, because the battery grip is designed for the chassis and the chassis is standardized. So that is why like you will find this kind of awkward design. So that is why that would be another benefit if you wait for A7 Mark IV, is that the battery grips and the tools you will buy, you will allow easily upgrade to A7R and A9 Mark II. So if you want to do wildlife photography and sports photography, A9, basically the upcoming Olympics, if your camera is very serious thing, A9 is like, I got you. The stock basically stacked CMOS sensor removes rolling shutter to nth degree. Basically it's really good, and the refresh rate on the autofocus system is 60 hertz. Basically it's you take 1 second, you stretch it to the 16 parts, it's like, yeah, I got this. So right now the camera needs a burst mode that does not even touches this. Basically it's so fast, like it would need 4K 60 frames per second. It's like, yeah, I'm in focus all the time. So that stacked sensor is the reason why that is so expensive. So these are the three tools. All three are professionally capable. Basically not only they have dual grips, they also have vertical grips where you can get a button control and all that. The only company that removed that is Nikon. It's like, why? So that is why in body wise, if you are low on money, buy this. If you want to do wedding, buy R. If you want to do sports or wildlife, buy 9. So these are the three choices you have. Then come to the lenses aspect. Now in the early days that was the main weak point, but they have made a good recovery and they have learned from their mistakes. Basically modern lenses that they are making is really good. So all lenses, if you're familiar with photography industry, the lenses are generally rebadged, relaunched multiple times. So for example, I have this Canon 70-300. Now this is Mark II lens. There is a this is Mark II. There is Mark I already in the market. However, like compared to that one and this one, it's not that drastically different. However, it's much more refined. Like you will not think, oh, the autofocus is like, whoa, that does not happen. It's much more refined. Basically the chromatic aberrations and pin cushion distortion and all that, those are refined, those are much more controlled. So that happens. Like that is something that Canon and Nikon can do better than Sony, simply because Nikon has been doing that for 100 years and Canon has been doing that for 50 years. Sony has been doing that barely for a few years. So that is a serious thing. Now Sony has shown extreme adaptability. They had a fault in lens and like boom, done new lens, better design, everything. Right now whatever the lenses, that 35 lenses that are available for full frame E-mount option, those are quite good lenses. Those are like really good lenses. So a good starting point is 24-70. No surprises there, simply because it's a very basically foundational use of Poly Trinity f2.8. That's a very good starting point, not too expensive, and you may think the price is high. Compare that price to Nikon series and Canon series. Then you will find, hey, this is very cheap. So flat on in terms of cost, they are cheap. Compare that to mirrorless. Please do not compare to DSLR lenses, because DSLR lenses have been in the market for long enough, basically 50 to 100 years. So again, those lenses are cheaper. These are a new breed of lenses, so they are completely expensive. And in those scenarios, Sony is cheaper and not bad. So you don't expect like, oh, I bought Sony one, so it's cheap. No, it's really damn good. So So it's a good starting point. If you're like one lens, I want to start it all, it's a good starting point. Then we come for a good wedding lens, that is 70 to 200. Why? Basically 70 to 200 allows you to do very good candid photography. Basically you don't have to put your lens on top of someone. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna take your photo. You don't want that. You want to be like, have them in their element, so to say. So in having them in their element, you want to have some distance, and that distance also allows you to compress the photograph. It makes it much more pleasing, so to say. So 70 to 200, got that. Now if you are from if you take a photograph in f4 and all that, and you are comfortable with what kind of noise you are getting, basically ISO performance and all that, there is a cheaper version of this which is f4. So for many people, they are saying, hey, that's good enough. If you do a lot of outdoor daytime photography, I would urge that, simply because it's lighter and cheaper. So that's up to you. You may want to go with f2.8 even if you don't do a lot of low light for that shallow depth of field. But ISO is the main reason. Then I would urge you to buy f4, simply because nowadays ISO performance is really good on photos. So you have those two options. Then we come for basically wildlife and sports photography. So here you have two options. You have 200 to 600 f6.5.6 to 6.3 optically image stabilizer. Basically this puppy, this is an Olympic lens. It's literally released just before the Olympics, so to say. So it's a very good lens, very capable lens, and dramatically great autofocus. It's like dramatically great, and you can see anybody who's reviewing this, like literally Sony listen to everybody's complaint. Is like, Nikon and Canon's complaint, hey dude, I have to twist the damn lens to zoom in, like of 2 whole turns I have to do. Then they just shrunk it down to 45 degrees. So basically if you do like this, you are zooming in, and the zooming is internal, so you don't have something sticking out. So basically that's what I'm specifying. They are listening to the customers, seeing what the opponents are doing badly, and they are improving on it. So quite refined system. And autofocus is like, compare, put this on an A9 Mark II, you set. Basically you set. So you have this option. Then you have a more expensive option, which is 100 to 400 millimeter f4.5 to 5.6, which is basically G master lens. This is a G lens, that is a G master lens. The only benefit that lens has, it's more expensive, a bit lighter, but it does very good macro photography, because it starts from 100 and goes to 400. It's good on macro photography. But for more people who wants that reach, like if you're doing sports, you want that reach, they will love this. Because, and not to mention that it can autofocus like in 45 degrees. Basically we move like this to zoom in the range. People will love this. But if you want to do all in one and you want to have macro capability, people would urge you to go for 100 to 400. So basically these 3 lenses, if you have in your kit or your box and all that, done. Like these 3 zoom lenses will take care of almost every need, and all of these lenses are top quality. Again, they are expensive, but relative to everything else, every other mirrorless system, they are cheap. So these are quite good systems. So these 3 lenses will cover almost everything. Again, prime lenses, that's up to you, because it's way too subjective. So what about third-party lenses? Now this is what Sony did when they came into the market scene. They knew flat on, but they cannot compete against Canon and Nikon simply because they have been doing this for 50 years. So lenses, to make sure that they have a good flooding of lens in the market, they opened their lens mount to companies like Sigma and Tamron and Voigtlander. There are 5-6 other companies which are not that largely available in my place. That's why I rarely refer them. It's like it may be available in your location, it's just not in mine. That is why I only refer to Sigma, Tamron, or to Tokina, things of that nature. Like there are hundreds company more, but those are not available to me. That's why I'm never referring that. So what Sony did is Sony went to Tamron and they bought 20% of market share. So it's one largest chunk. So Sony becomes a controlling interest in Tamron. So they will cripple Tamron in very unique ways. Basically, make awesome lenses, because the more profit you, the more money you will make, the more profit they will get, because they own it indirectly. And not to mention, it will help people buy more Sony bodies. They will make money on that. But because this could directly face a competition to their G Masters lineup, they are like, don't make it exactly the same. So they will have, instead of 24 to 70, they will have 28 to 70. So instead of having basically 70 to 200, they will have 70 to 180. So you can understand Tamron is bit crippled. Now benefit of what Tamron gets is basically their autofocus is much more better than basically Sigma series. Sigma, like people have been really complaining about that part, that Sigma really does not live up to the autofocus capability of Sony system. Because while the lens mount is open, it's not open. It's not like L mount Alliance or Micro Four Third system. It's not anybody can build things. So Tamron lenses have better track record, especially, and Tamron has now started to release firmware patches and all that fix. It is really pushing the Tamron lenses on a very good direction. So be mindful. Third-party lenses are a dual-edged sword. people hope that would not be the case, but still is the case. It's like Sony's lenses with Sony system, it's the most mind-boggling performance you ever gonna get. But you can get better optical performance, better lens selection, better price performance ratio, but you will not get that oomph that Sony has. So cheap, but it's variable. Now that is the most critical aspect. You can, like, let's say you bought there are 3 prime lenses from Sigma that you want. You bought 2 of them, and both of them are like damn good, like yeah, awesome performance. You bought the 4th one, is like third one is like, dude, what the hell, it's focusing too slowly. So there is a lot of variabilities. Please check your exact model that you want to buy, because the variability on third-party lenses are drastic, very drastic. So you can have like Sigma 35mm, awesome. Sigma 50mm is like, what the hell, it's not even focusing properly. So please test your lens. Now, and if you can afford to do that, please test the damn lens directly, because there are rental houses that will allow you to do that. Like, that will save you a lot of money. Now, their autofocus will never match up to the Sony autofocus. Now, question becomes why? Again, Tamron should match up because they are directly controlled by Sony, but simply because Sony does put something into their lenses that are on a different level. Basically, how in Panasonic department, I specified that Panasonic knows how to make image iteration. They know how to do dual image iteration. Basically, have the sensor move a little bit and a little bit of correction from lenses. So it literally floats, like the whole system floats. Sony is the same company doing the same thing with autofocus department, because Sony, while they are not big in terms of, like, camera department, they are big in terms of TV equipments. They have been making news gathering equipments for long enough. They know how those things work. So benefit of that, they have linear motors. Again, those are ludicrously expensive to make, but they are silent and they are fast. So that there alone is like they are flat out destroying every DSLR lens out there. On top of that, in some of the newer models that they are releasing, they have dual system. Basically, they have 2 systems. Think of it this way: in a microscope, you must have seen, if you have the stage, you have to move. There will be like fine adjustment and coarse adjustment. So they have one lens element solely dedicated for coarse adjustment, another for fine adjustment. These 2 are moving like this, like to do autofocus. That is why this puppy can keep up that 60 Hz refresh rate, because again, even your computer can do hundreds of time autofocus, but your lens physically have to move to physically compensate for that. So it must have the technology to do so. Sony does have that. Like Sony is one of the prime lens. I keep forgetting the exact model, 135mm f1.8 or something like that. It's god layer basically autofocus. Like if people are autofocusing on an A7, not A9, A7, Eagle, Bird and all that jazz, and they're like, oh, perfectly eye focus, because the lenses are moving that fast. So Sony does know how to make autofocus. It's not that their autofocus is like, oh, they're encrypting it or decrypting. No, they physically have different technology. And that is why another reason why it's so expensive. But benefit of that is, like, if you buy Sony lenses, you try to take Olympic photo with A9, it's like, bro, I got this. I got this. It's like completely different. A9 Mark II, people are saying hit rate of 98%, like 98% of photos in focus while in burst mode. That's not even heard of. And not to mention, you can have edge to edge focus. So please be mindful of that. If you're buying third-party lens, test it out. If it works for you, awesome, enjoy. But do not expect that it will ever come close to the G Master. Not because that G Master is just, they are ripping you off. They actually have something that actually makes it worthwhile. So this concludes my video on which Sony to buy. I hope you liked it, learn from it. In that case, please click like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, I would urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me your extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.